Okay, so I think a good thing to review is where we're at on the interface as far as what we're going to be doing today. We're going to talk about functions. Okay, and when we talk about functions, we're going to have three ways where we can enter them, and we got to understand the format of functions as well. Excel has one of the most powerful features of Excel is it has built-in functions that do things for you. Take averages, sum things, count things. There's some text functions, there's logicals, there's financial functions for those of you in accounting and finance. A couple of things, we're going to look at that. We're also, and we did this a little bit in stats, we'll talk about cell references, and there's absolute references, and you remember maybe from stats that was the ones with the dollar signs. They didn't change no matter where we copied them. They were always absolute. And the default is relative reference. If I copy a cell over a column, it's going to adjust the reference over a column as well. We're going to also talk about the different areas of functions. Every function has arguments. Arguments, if you will, are inputs. Okay? So a function, not all functions have inputs, but most do. If you're summing something, you have to give an array of what you want summed, right? Those are the things, if you want, if you're trying to figure out a loan payment, you need to give it things like the number of periods, the rate, the starting value. Okay, those are arguments, those are inputs into functions. We're going to use, there's also optional arguments, and we're going to use some of these formulas today. So I guess, so types of cell references, some relative, absolute, mixed. Relative is the default in Excel. Relative addresses are without the dollar signs. You guys know what I mean when I'm saying without the dollar signs? Okay, so that means if you copy it over a column, it's going to adjust the reference over a column. If you copy it down a row, it's going to adjust the reference down a row. Absolute means no matter where I copy it, it has two dollar signs. No matter where I copy it, it's going to stay the same. If it's dollar sign C20, C dollar sign 21, no matter where I copy it, it's going to stay C21. Mixed is, remember, there's two aspects of every reference. There's the column and then there's the row. Well, sometimes we want the column to be absolute and the row to be relative, or vice versa. That's a mixed reference. Okay, so it'll change the row and not the column, or vice versa. And we'll use some of those as we go. So I'm just going to go through this a little bit. The dollar sign is what maintains that. You'll see the F4 function is what kind of locks that in. When we work with functions, the general syntax of all Excel functions is this. We use an equal sign to say, hey, we're going to enter a formula. Typically, you guys know that. And all functions look like this. There's a function name, and then there's arguments. And one thing that students kind of screw up sometimes with arguments is there's never any spaces in there. Okay, it's always an argument, first input, comma, the second argument, comma, the third argument. When we type in, it'll actually help us with this. It'll actually say what it's looking for. It's looking for this. And sometimes you'll see square brackets around the argument. What that means is they're optional. Those are always at the end. An optional argument, like an optional thing that's part of the function. So functions come in categories. A lot of times we just go in, we enter them in. But Excel does a nice job of grouping them into categories as well. And we're going to look at some of these today, play around with some of these today. Cube is for something called, if you took MIS class with me, something called OLAP, Online Analytical Processing. It's more geared toward higher end stuff. Database is when we connect an Excel spreadsheet to the database, we'll do that later. Date and time makes sense. Engineering, we're not going to touch that. Financial, we're going to do a lot of that. Information, we're going to do that. Logical, we're going to talk about that in this section. Lookup and reference, those are like VLOOKUPs and HLOOKUPs. If you guys have ever done that, we'll do that in several modules. Math and trig, we've done those kind of things. Sum, average, statistical, and then text. Text is, there's a lot of very useful functions there as we change text. And a lot of times what students have told me is when they go out in the real world, it's not so much that they can't use Excel, but the data they get from whatever purpose from this system, has a lot of cleanup to do. So text functions can really help us clean them up and standardize the data. So I think that's good. Okay. So let's go to today's module, and we'll follow tutorial 3, and we'll go to the tutorial module. So if you go to Blackboard and go to Tutorial Module 3, and under there's Module 3 data files. And on the very bottom it says Tutorial. And the data set that I want to bring up is Drake. Okay. You guys get this? You'll bring it up, Colin? Okay. So, just give you a little context to this. You know, they try to tell a story, make it real life. But we are the Drake family, apparently, and we want to buy a home. Okay, so a lot of things going on. We want to look at our monthly income, our monthly expenses, project that forward. Also look at how much we can save. And then later we're going to talk about, okay, how much we need to borrow, what that payment will be, and factor that into our budget. So this is going to take a little bit of time to get through, and there's a lot of things that are part of it that I think you'll find very easy. But you know, just put your author and the date in the first one. What is it, the 22nd? Is that right? Okay, so there's a lot of areas from this worksheet we're going to develop, but basically, Diane and Glenn are a family, and they are going to have income. And their income is going to differ based on school or in summer. I guess they're teachers, perhaps. We're going to do some analysis of the year-end summary, total income, total expenses. We also have down below, we have a table here that shows us all the expenses for Diane and Glenn. We're going to figure out their income as well over this month, and then see what kind of net cash flow we have over the course of the year, so we can determine how much we save. So what I want us to do is go down to cell C32. Okay, let's start in cell C32, which is we're going to sum up the expenses for January. Okay, so go to cell C32. And a couple things I can do to enter this formula. I know obviously you guys know one, we can do auto sum and it'll shove it right in there for us, yes? Another way we can do this is if we go over, and I'm going to show you all three ways. If I go to the formulas tab, okay, and I do insert function, okay, and this is what I wanted to show you. There are different categories. For example, most recently used, these are the ones I most recently used on Excel. But if we go to, for example, math and trig, okay, I believe this is where we're going to find the sum. There it is, sum, okay? And I'm going to click OK. And then it brings up a dialog. And this can be useful because it can help us, it kind of helps us go through and say, what do we need and what is it we're all going to look like? It's one way to enter formulas. I typically type in. This is kind of way I don't like, you know, this interface, but this is very useful to some people. So anyways, you can see it says sum, and it has some arguments, and the bold, you see number 1 is bold. That means it's required. We need something in there. Okay, we need something in there, and what it's looking for is an array, you know, something to sum, and it shows us the formula result down here based on that. Now, if I click on the little spreadsheet. You guys have seen this probably before in stats. I can highlight, you know, C22 through C31. That selects that area for me. I click the little drop down, the little close the window, and it pre-fills it in there. And it shows me, hey, C22 to C31 is what's going to go in there. What's also nice is when I bring it up this way, there's a little hyperlink, help on this function, and it'll bring up the help area of this function and tell us what sum is all about. Maybe I have to type it in. Thought it broke it up. So we can find, there's videos out there, learn how to use, so there's different things we can do with that function. But pretty straightforward. I'm going to click OK, and it's going to add that in. What do you suppose we should do at this point now? Yeah, we're going to drag it across or copy and paste it across. And at this point, relative addressing is our friend, right? Because in the next cell, we do want it to add, February's column. So we don't want to change anything here. So I could either, you guys know multiple ways to do this. I could either copy and paste it over. I can do the fill across. I'm going to just take that corner, drag it across. And there are our monthly expenses for our family at this point, okay? All right, so let's go, and we want to also enter in Diane and Glenn's income, okay? Because expenses, we have expenses, but we also have to offset that with income. And this is kind of known. We have a jobs that differ in the school and in summertime. So Diane and Glenn have told us that during the school time of the year, Diane makes $2,800, I believe, and Glenn makes $1,300. And then during the summer, Diane makes $2,100, and Glenn makes $2,600. Okay. So I'm going to want to sum those up as well. So I'm going to highlight both of those cells and put in my auto sum, instead of just doing it once and dragging it over. Highlight both, auto sum, it'll figure out what you're doing. Okay, you guys with me? Okay, so down here, we want this to be retracted across January through December. And a lot of times, I want to use a reference instead of typing in 2,800 here, for January, February, March, April, May, and then 2,100 for for the other one. I want to use one reference. Why do I want to use one reference? Why do I want to reference off that one spot? Shane, why would I want to reference off that one spot instead of typing it in 10 times? Colin? Yeah, if I change it, it'll automatically. So I'm going to enter in a reference, a cell reference, but it's really not going to have any type of formula. So for Diane, it looks like I'm just going to put in here equal D5. Okay, and that is going to be, that's what Diane makes during the school months. And I'm going to put in equal, D6, because I think that's what Glenn makes. And then I'm going to, might as well auto sum that as well. Okay? Because if that 2,800 changes, Glenn gets a raise or Diane gets a raise, I change it one place and it's going to autofill. Now, this only applies to